Well, I know that many of you have been hearing about the tomato seeds that were sent up in space and have now been brought back down to Earth. And this is really an interesting and exciting project that maybe some children, and maybe even your children, if they're in some science projects at school, have already become involved in. The Space Shuttle Challenger sent up 12.5 million tomato seed donated by the Park Seed Company. And these seed were placed in aluminum canisters and then in Dacron bags and subjected to all sorts of different types of conditions while in space. They were exposed, of course, to cosmic radiation. They were also exposed to differences in gravity changes. They were exposed to weightlessness and to extremes in temperature from about minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit up to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, these seeds floated around in space for almost 6 years, and they were brought back down by the Space Shuttle Columbia just in January of this year. Now, Nelson Ehrlich, who is the coordinator for the OSU project, furnished us with some packets of these seeds for us to plant and to see some of the things that we may discover on them, because it is an exciting project. Several of the seed were left in a controlled atmosphere here on the Earth, and they're referred to as Earth-based seed, while the other seeds were exposed to these various conditions in space. And so about 450 to 500 school districts now around Oklahoma, as well as many other school districts around the country, are looking at the effect that this space exposure might have on these seeds and seeing if there's any change in plant growth, in plant habit, in flowering, and ultimately maybe even in the size and the shape of the fruit. Now, some exciting things can happen just because of irradiation of seed. For example, some of you may know, and if you know, I think it's very interesting to note, that the pink grapefruit is a result of irradiating seed from the white grapefruit. So we can see that mutations can occur and some genetic changes can occur in plants because of irradiation. So this is one of the things that they're looking for. But also, space-exposed seeds may have some real potential as far as long-term storage of some very important genetic material. For example, they've already found that these seeds that are exposed in space have germinated about 80% better than those seeds that were not exposed in space, but yet were in a controlled atmosphere here on Earth. The interesting things also about these seeds are that the seeds really do not look like your normal, ordinary tomato seed, because they were put through a defuzzing process in the space before placed in the space capsule. And this was done, of course, because of the lack of space that it would take if the fuzz was removed, and also because of the changes perhaps in the seed morphology if those were left with the fuzz on there. In addition to the 12.5 million seed that the Park Seed Company donated for this project for NASA, they also sent up about 140 other vegetable varieties, and these are also being tested in some test gardens around the country to see what the effect of this radiation and these other environmental changes might have on the seeds. I think this is a really interesting project, and I'm excited that many of our school children are getting involved in this, not only to learn something about the techniques of science, but also learning more about the joy of studying science in general. So I think it's an interesting project. We're going to be excited here on Oklahoma Gardening to grow some of these tomatoes out and see what they look like. Now, I've also been assured that there is absolutely no danger whatsoever from these seed. In fact, there has been a little bit of concern on some people that because these seed are exposed to cosmic radiation, there may be some concern. But we'll assure you that many horticulturists and researchers have gone through projects similar to this before, and there's absolutely no danger whatsoever as far as irradiation of these particular seed.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.